This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Yes, sir. Doc and Jock are now available for download. Thank you for listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
I'm going to give you two options. I'll let you take the show, or at least this opening segment, wherever you want to go. You want to discuss what is horrible in the state of Michigan, or do you want to talk about what I learned this weekend? We'll cover them both, so you just get to pick which one we're going to go with first.
No, obviously, things are going well with me. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't care.
But definitely I want to talk about what happened on Tuesday regarding Michigan State. What a tough situation if you're a Sparty supporter. Because
not just that, if you're a Michigan supporter too, does Michigan even have a basketball team at this point? Both Michigan and Michigan State, both teams are rotten to the core.
College basketball right now in town is a little bit tough to watch. Oakland University even is struggling. They can't make a three-point shot to save their life. But it's one of those things where when you see the matchup, Michigan State versus Purdue, you had an opportunity potentially to see what could have been. Caleb Swanigan was a commit to Michigan State. Everybody got super excited. We were like, boom, we got to recruit a big-time guy. And then for some reason, he said he wanted to play closer to home and da-da-da-da-da. He decommitted, and he ends up at Purdue. And dude just balled out on Tuesday night. And it was one of those situations where after the game, friend of the podcast, Justin Rose, asked a legitimate question, maybe leading just a little bit, bringing up the fans. And we'll play it just in a quick second here. But Tom Izzo kind of put his foot in his mouth in terms of how he addressed it. But if you watch the clip, and you can find it on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, you can see how much he's worn down. You can see how much the losing has gotten to him. It's frustrating. Michigan State sits at 12-9. They're like 152 in the RPI. They're in a situation where there's a legitimate shot that they don't make it into the NCAA tournament. And if they were to qualify, it would be like almost 20 years consistently making it to the postseason. And I know his first year he struggled.
Longest streak in NCAA history, by the way.
It's just one of those things where it's very frustrating. Michigan State is, not to make excuses, they are a team that has been decimated by injury. And you got one guy basically that can ball out for you night in, night out, and that's Miles Bridges. And everybody else, you wouldn't even probably play him at Macomb Community.
Wait, hold on. Do you think Miles Bridges can ball night in and night out? He had a really, really outstanding game the other night against Purdue.
Dude, he's a freshman.
Exactly. Other than that, he's been a little bit inconsistent. I know coming into the year he was hampered with an injury, but that's been the first real spark that you've seen from Bridges all season long. This is going to be a trying year for MSU, and I do think that they'll eventually get into the tournament. It's just where they're going to be placed right now. At this point, according to Joe Lunardi, both Michigan State and Michigan are in the NCAA tournament. But that being said, there's a lot of work for both of these schools to do. Michigan State's struggling. I think they have a better shot than Michigan to get in. Michigan, again, like I said, do they even have a basketball team? This rivalry has fallen so far down the totem pole that they're playing 2 of their next 3 games against each other, and we're not even talking about them on this podcast. We're not even talking about the matchup. We're not even talking about how far the gap has been closed. And we're not talking about any of this. Like, it doesn't even register because there's so many other interesting things to discuss and other things that we have to get to. And Michigan State and Michigan basketball, it's not even there. That's how bad of a season it's been for both of these clubs.
All right, so let's get to this press conference that Tom Izzo had. I believe Justin had one of the earlier questions, so he got ribbed a little bit on Twitter regarding, hey, man, you set the tone with that. How do you follow that? But Justin asked the question, and Tom Izzo gives a pretty elaborate response here, and it's kind of set off some national headlines here.
Tom, 12-9 on the season now. Fan base, you said earlier this week.
I don't care about the fan base.
Understandable, but
Okay.
the team is in a situation where, when do you start to? You keep talking enthusiastically, they're getting better and whatnot, but the record's maybe not showcasing.
Well, you know the good thing about me?
Yeah.
I've never BS'd one of you in my whole 22 years. So if I say that, the good thing is you know it's the truth. Because if I say they're not playing good, I tell you just like it is. Sometimes it gets me in trouble. This is one time when, we played good enough. I thought we got the short end of a couple of calls, and I thought that made a difference, and we just don't have the bodies. So I'm not worried about anything but the next game, and I'm not worried about them until I get done with tonight and tomorrow. And when I break down my game, I'm going to worry about the next game. It's not coach speak. It's not anything else. If people want to complain.
Doc wants to complain.
I don't care.
What?
I really don't. I know what I'm doing. I know what this team is doing.
Not making the tournament.
I know what they're going through. And nobody knows what they're going through because
I do.
Nobody's had to do it. So I've been here before, too. Been here before and got to the tournament. So do I sit here and every day think, boy, this is going to cost us getting to the tournament?
You should be.
I don't do that. I really don't. I've had to win 3 games in the Big Ten tournament to get there and done it. So do I like where we are? I don't like where we are. Do I understand where we are? I do understand where we are. Am I going to worry about what somebody says that has no clue? No clue.
Not even the doc?
What this team has gone through and what we're doing.
Sparty graduate?
I'm not going to worry about that. I feel their disappointment. You know what? They got to be disappointed. And nobody should have been disappointed in the effort those young guys gave tonight. Nobody should be disappointed that I had to throw some guys in there that just probably aren't ready to play, aren't good enough to play in those situations. I got no problem with that. So that's not insulting to our fans.
That was courtesy of Justin Rose, who posted it unedited because he obviously knew that, oh boy, when Tom Izzo utters the words, "I don't care about the fan base," that is the leading headline across the nation. But there was some context there that was provided in that he kind of doubled back and said, listen, it's not one of those things where I have to really worry about. It is one of those things where I feel for the guys. They're balling out night in, night out. It's just one of those things where we don't have a team that can match up too often night in, night out. It's
just obvious that the frustration of this season, and more specifically the last 5 games, which they've gone 4-1 in, or 1-4, I apologize, is really just starting to get to them. And they're losing to teams like Penn State, losing to teams like Ohio State, and these aren't good clubs right now that they're losing to. It's just every single game is going to be a struggle for Michigan State this year. Again, I think they're going to get into the tournament, so all you Spartan fans, keep your pants on. It's going to be okay. I think Michigan will probably be on the outside looking in and will get some kind of seed in the NIT because they're awful just as well. But look, Tom Izzo knows exactly what he's doing. He does this every single year. He puts them through the meat grinder when they sit there and they schedule their non-conference. After their non-conference, they then jump into conference play, and these kids are worn out. They're tired. They just got their butts handed to them for, 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row on top of all the practices going into the season where Tom just drills them and runs them into the ground. So now they're sitting there trying to rebound. This team has been dealing with a multitude of injuries. You just got Miles Bridges back. And yeah, he had a really good game the other night, but he's still working himself into shape and into condition to sit there and compete every single night, game in, game out. It's just going to be one of those seasons. Look, this team's going to get into the Big Ten tournament. They're going to have to win probably a game or 2. I expect them to do that. They'll be right there when tournament time comes around. So just kind of chill out. It's going to be all right. Justin did a great job asking the question, and I'm guessing if he was looking to elicit a reaction, he got the reaction that he probably wanted because this has been all over ESPN. It's been all over the newspapers. Basically, you can't lift your head up without seeing it or hearing it. So he got a reaction. I don't know if it was the one he wanted, but if it was, he sure as hell got it.
No, it's one of those things where when you look at the Michigan State program right now, you don't want to make excuses. They do have talent, but it's one of those things where now it just didn't line up exactly right. You had a situation where this year you could have had Caleb Swanigan, Miles Bridges, Deonta Davis, and you could have been competing. And I know Tom Izzo has been fighting the urge to kind of go out there and get those one-and-dones. Miles Bridges has all the signs, and many people are speculating that he's a one-and-done guy. And it just stinks because you can't, in that sense, get any continuity and get, a program off the ground because, you have to replace all these guys that are talented. And you got to remember, all these programs now in the Big Ten are getting better. They're still continuing to recruit. And it's one of those things where it is getting a little bit stale up there at Michigan State. The loss to Middle Tennessee State was a huge knock on the program. And many people are saying that, hey, don't discount Tom Izzo and what's going on. But if you look at it, I don't even think this situation this season, even the great Tom Izzo can bring this group of talent into the postseason and do anything. This looks like a 1 or 2 win, team in the NCAA if they even qualify. I don't think they can just, turn it on when you look at some of the intricacies. They don't offensively rebound particularly well. They don't shoot particularly well. Outside of Miles Bridges, who's going to make the key shot? You can't count on all these freshmen to come out there and night in, night out, grow and just turn on, flip the switch and get there. So it's one of those things where it's tough. And do I discount Tom Izzo? No. Is my speculation, is my, discontent growing? Yeah, because his job is to bring in the top guys. His job is to not go 12-9 at this point in the season. And it's just super tough. Injuries aside, it's just one of those things where you wish that Michigan State would be further along than they are this season. And I'm not exactly sure that, these next 3 games, they're going to win one of them. You have to play well. Michigan's going to come in trying to shoot the lights out. And if they get hot, you could probably realistically going to split with Michigan. You got to win versus Nebraska. You still got to play Purdue at Purdue. There's going to be some losses potentially that rack up here.
I like how you say that, but you don't believe it at all. Look, there's a good possibility that in 3 weeks we look back at this and Michigan State's gone 5-0. You're playing Michigan twice, Nebraska, Iowa, and OSU, and all those teams are below 500 right now. All of them are awful. You got a great shot to sit there, go 5-0, rattle off a couple of wins, and next thing you know, you're going to be praising Tom Izzo about how he's the greatest coach ever and how it's all part of his master plan that he crafts every single year. I just feel like it's a lot of just talking out of both sides of your mouth right now, and I don't even think you believe it. And I don't think Michigan State fans believe it because you see it every single year. This happens every year right around this time. Tom Izzo looks like he's about to have a mental breakdown, looks like he's about to go smack Rita around because everything's falling apart with his program, and then next thing you know, turns it on. And they sit there, rattle off 5-6 wins, and next thing you know, they're in the driver's seat in the Big Ten, and they control their destiny. And that's what's going to happen, because it happens every year.
Yeah, but you can't just say that, Tom Izzo year in, year out is just going to take a team and do some things. Look, last year, you had the president of the United States picking Michigan State to win it all. I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth, because I'm watching the games and I go, well, look, okay, you got to have a team that can shoot the ball consistently. You got a team that has to rebound. You need to have size. You need to have, consistency across the rotation. And hey, Miles Bridges could get hurt again. So you got a situation where it's a depleted team, and I think that they lack confidence at this point in time because they know they're outmatched and they're outsized in the Big Ten. You got to remember, the Big Ten is no cupcake. It's a big boy league, and you got to rebound and you got to bang inside. So I would say that I believe that right now.
This is the Big Ten of 2-3 years ago, though.
This Wisconsin, Maryland, and Purdue are pretty good.
Down.
There's still 4 good teams in the Big Ten. Not across the board, no. But Maryland, Wisconsin, Purdue, and you could say Michigan State's at the bottom end of it, but there's 4 decent teams in there.
I don't know. So Maryland's pretty good, Wisconsin's pretty good, and Purdue's okay. And then after that, if you go by record and you go by the standings, Northwestern? Really? Northwestern? Come on. Northwestern? You should never lose a game to Northwestern. I don't know, man. This Big Ten is very watered down this year. And look, Tom's got a very young team. You knew this was going to be a struggle. He's got to do a little bit of coaching up. And again, runs you through the meat grinder, wears you down. And then basically after midwinter break, the guys are going to come back and it's going to be revitalized. They're going to have life. They're going to have some legs and they'll be jumping out of the gym. It's what happens all the time. I feel like we have the same exact stupid conversation every single year. And every single year I say the same exact thing. It's going to be okay. Honestly, it's going to be okay. Michigan State fans, come here, I want to bring you in. I want to bring you in real close. And I want to hold you. And I want to tell you, it's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. Tom's got it under control. He just looks like a maniac right now at the podium, and he almost killed Justin. Justin, you're going to be okay too, bud. I promise you. It's going to be all right.
When you get ESPN, ESPN2 love, you get national respect there. I don't think Justin's worried too much. I like the fact that he provided the entire press conference to give some context.
For Michigan State, what is the goal every year? Is the goal to win the Big Ten? Is the goal to win the Big Ten tourney? Is the goal to sit there and get into the NCAA tournament? Is it to make a Final Four? What is the goal every year for Michigan State basketball?
Every team, I believe, would have those same goals, is to win the Big Ten, do well in the Big Ten tournament.
Narrow it down.
The big time goal, win it all.
So every year, you expect Michigan State to sit there and win the NCAA championship. Every year, you expect that.
Final Four, yeah.
You're out of your mind.
Dude, he's gotten there 7 times.
You're out of your mind. You expect Michigan State to win the Big Ten championship, or to win the win March Madness every single year. To win the championship, be the highest you can be. You expect this. Making a Final Four is different. You can say make a Final Four. You can say make an Elite 8. You can say make a Sweet 16 team. And I think those are more realistic goals. If you expect Michigan State every single year in, year out, to sit there and be the NCAA men's championship team, I think you're smoking something that's probably better than anything I can get my hands on.
No, what's going on with Tom Izzo is he's built a national program.
Answer the question.
My expectation for now, after what he's built with 7 Final Fours, is that he should probably take the next step and get some guys here like a Caleb Swanigan. So my expectation is to win it all every year, like Duke.
Every year, win it all.
Be Duke. That's the goal. Be Duke.
I think you're out of your mind. Thank you for finally answering the question in the most roundabout way.
B. Duke is your expectation, but what's going on now is he's falling under the weight of his own expectations in that in the last 5 years, he's gotten guys, but collectively he hasn't built a solid enough team to make a decent run. And so Tom Izzo is one of those guys where I think that the next step for this program has to be consistently getting back to the Final Four and trying to get guys that will stay 4 years and do some things and grow together. These one-and-done guys, for me personally, is not the way to go because you see what happens now. Now you got a team this year that's probably not going to go anywhere. You're bringing in guys, but if they're all going to leave after 1 year, you have no continuity. I liked it in the past where they had a program and kept guys for 4 years. I know that Tom Izzo has a tough job in that he's got to have these expectations, but hey, that's the job, and we're not trying to be nicey nice here. He's built a solid program and a program that when he makes a comment like, I don't care about the fans, people listen. And he's built a national program, but right now it's gotten a little bit stale, and he hasn't brought in enough talent to compete with the big boys. Look at Duke. Why is it that Duke, year in and year out, bring in the national talent? Because they got a coach who goes out there and demands that I'm going to get the absolute best guy in the world. And look at Jabari Parker. Michigan State was right there, within an inch of getting Jabari Parker. Did he go to Michigan State? No, he went to Duke. You're right there. You got the commit from Caleb Swanigan. Why is it that he goes over to Purdue? Because at Michigan State, hey, he was expected to be the center. He looks over at Purdue and goes, boom, I got 2 7-footers here. I can be the forward and do my business and get rebounds and I'm not expected to be the center. So when that kind of news comes out, why is it that Michigan State's going to pigeonhole Caleb Swanigan? And that's probably one of the reasons why he's not at Michigan State, because he didn't want to play center. And maybe that was something that was going to be forced on him. And it's one of those situations where you need a Caleb Swanigan, a Davis, and a Miles Bridges all at once. And that's Tom Izzo's fault. And hey, you lose these guys to injuries, that's his fault. And all I'm saying is we expect more now at the fan base. And if you want to go backwards and say, hey, let's start all over and, lessen the expectations, I can do that. But based upon what he's built, I think that Tom Izzo is a guy that if he has the pieces and can get the players, he's got every advantage to go out there and get this team far ahead. I just think that the number one weakness now that they have as a program is recruiting. It's not coaching, it's recruiting. They don't have the horses. And hey, the program is not only responsible for what's happening on the court, you're responsible for the pipeline of talent coming in. If it's not good enough, if you go out there and say, hey, we're depleted and things like that, whose fault is that? It's Tom Izzo's fault. It's the program's fault.
I think there's one team out there that can realistically say we expect to win a championship every single year, and that's Kentucky, and that's because Calipari
and Duke. Not this year, though.
No, I don't even think Duke. I think Duke realistically can sit there and say, hey, we expect to be in the Final Four every year, just like North Carolina, that's a team, and even Kentucky. Those are 3 teams right there that can realistically say, hey, every year we expect to make a Final Four. Kansas is who I meant, can realistically think to be in a Final Four. Kentucky is a team that has the ability to sit there and say, hey, we expect to win a national championship every single year, and that's because Calipari can go out and recruit those players. And yeah, I do think there's something shady going on there, because every time Calipari leaves a joint, he leaves them with sanctions. If you look at a team like Louisville, you look at a team like Villanova, you look at a team like, Arizona, UCLA, those teams, those are in the same echelon as a Michigan State, where you can say, realistically, every year we go into the season expecting to make a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8. That's where you expect to be. And then you know what? You make it to the Final Four, it's all gravy. You win a national championship, hey, hot damn, you did a great job. It's one of those types of situations. Michigan State, and if you want to put this on Tom, put it on Tom. He doesn't recruit the same caliber of players that a guy that Calipari recruits and doesn't get them. He'll sit there and he'll take a swing at those guys, but he usually comes up missing. And again, I think it's because Calipari has a system that's more conducive to let the players do what they want to do. Tom runs a very structured and rigid offense and defense, and he expects you to play on defense. Calipari doesn't care. As long as you can sit there and outscore the opponent, he doesn't care. It's all about wins. On top of that, there's duffel bags of money changing hands. Come on. You got to open your eyes up here and you got to realize, I think if you are a Michigan State fan and you expect them to win national championships every single year, you're out of your mind. They just don't recruit that way. The program is not built that way. It runs in a cycle for this program. That's why if you stay till you're a senior, what is it, every 4 years, you make it to a Final Four? Isn't that how it kind of works? Yes, no? I mean, you're the Michigan State grad. Is that how it works?
That's how it works.
Okay, exactly. So it runs in cycles. He builds his team. Yeah, Miles Bridges might be one and done this year. But if he stays, I'm sure this team will be much better next year, and we won't be having this conversation. However, we probably will be having this conversation because we have it every single year.
Well, in college basketball, you can erase all the nonsense in March. That's all you got to do. But when you come off of a season where you lose to Middle Tennessee State in the first round, one of the biggest upsets, especially compared to the expectations, hey, erase it all in March, and then we'll see what happens because the last taste in everybody's mouth that you left, and for the majority of people, they really only pay attention in March. So that's the lasting memory they have of your program is getting embarrassed by a Middle Tennessee State. So you got to go out there and handle your business in March. And hey, if the team can, get these guys that are injured back and they can be productive and they can get a little bit of help for Miles Bridges, then hey, then you can have a chance to make a run in March and everybody will be happy. And maybe we won't have this talk until early February next year.
Let me tell you what I learned this weekend.
Once you go black, you never go back.
Okay, because I learned something very important going forward in my life and something that you've tried to explain to me, but I never really realized it. Something that my brothers tried to explain to me, but I never really realized it. Something that my parents have tried to explain to me, but I never really grasped any of it. So this weekend, working on my car with my brother, brings a part over for my car because he was able to get it for me, and we're trying to install it. He brings my nephew with him, and my nephew's running around my house, and both of us are outside, and he's basically left unattended in my house.
How old is the nephew?
4.
4, okay.
So, which is fine. He just basically he eats all my bananas. I had like 4 bananas sitting on the banana hook, and he basically runs to the door. Hey, I grabbed another banana. I had another banana. All right, cool, whatever, dude. So eats all my bananas. That's fine. As we're working on this project was supposed to take maybe a half an hour. In hindsight, looking at it, if we would have probably done everything the right way we're supposed to do, you know how it is when you start working on a car, one thing leads to another. Turns out you're usually doing things wrong. If you've ever worked on a Volkswagen, it's a hunk of junk. Don't ever buy one. It's a total pain in the butt to do anything on them. So now we're like an hour into it. He's like, hey, I want to come out with you guys, and I want to sit there and help. Well, you're not going to really be able to help, but okay, yeah, you can come out with us. That's fine. So he's outside. He's bouncing around in my car, jumping all over my seats, pushing all the buttons on my dash, this, that, the other thing. As we're finishing up getting the part back into the car, because we got the old one out, got the new one in, he jumps up and grabs my rear view mirror, rips it right off.
Oh.
So we just got done putting in a brand new part on my car, and then now I've got to put a rear view mirror either back on or get it fixed, one or the other. So I'm looking at it, and it looks like it should just snap right on, no problem. Try to put it back on, and I'm pushing, and my brother's like, it should just snap on, right? And I'm like, yeah, it should. And my brother feels awful, by the way, at this point, because he's like, dude, he just broke your rear view mirror. This is awful. I'm pushing.
So you put the kid over your knee and gave him a big ass whooping, right?
No.
What?
I didn't freak out.
Teach him a lesson.
No, I didn't freak out at all, man. It was an accident, something that can be fixed. It wasn't going to be difficult. At least I didn't think it was going to be difficult. I'm pushing, trying to put this rear view mirror back on, and all of a sudden all I hear is pop, and I end up basically blowing out my front windshield, trying to push this rear view mirror back on. So now I need a new windshield, and I need a new rear view mirror for my car. So this just went from being something that was kind of expensive and us getting it fixed on the cheap to now being something that's really expensive. And so at this point, my stepbrother just feels absolutely atrocious about everything. And my nephew's like, I don't know what I just did, but I know I'm in a lot of trouble. And it's like, yes, yes, you kind of are. So yeah. Anyways, what I learned, kids are expensive. Very, very expensive. They will sit there and destroy everything, and it will cost you lots and lots of monies. That's all I learned.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where you got to realize sometimes when you have the kids around, you got to have somebody watching them, and you got to definitely limit the trouble. Oh my gosh, man! So where are you at with the car? You get it all fixed?
Thursday, I take it in to get the windshield replaced, so it'll be all right.
Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah,
you know what else is tough? The fact that the upcoming Detroit Tigers season is, upon us, and we're looking at the roster, and we're like, oh my gosh, we have the same
question marks on the roster.
I asked Vito on the Tigers Talk podcast, are you a caravan guy? Do you like the fact that they parade all these guys around town? They have them serve, dinners at restaurants. They're at the auto show. They're kind of just parading the Detroit Tigers going, hey, remember us? We're a team that, I like the commercial that they've been airing now recently, trying to get, of course, you put Michael Fulmer smack dab right there in the middle of the commercial, like, hey, definitely buy tickets. He's a guy. He's a superstar. But for me, I'm not a Caravan guy. I could care less. Hit me up when they get to Lakeland and they start throwing and things like that. But I just look at this team and I look at it and I go, I'm just not really all that excited regarding what's going on. I'm definitely going to fire up and be more into it around the time of spring training and when the season starts. But for me, I don't see even this group of talent, especially with what Cleveland has done. My expectations going into it are just pretty low.
Yeah, I don't really get excited for the Caravan myself. I get more excited when pitchers and catchers report, because then it's basically upon you. Then after that, everybody else reports, and then spring training's underway. And once spring training fires up, that's when I kind of get fired up. I can kind of see what some of the pieces are doing and how the guys are looking, and then my expectations kind of start to build, and I start to formulate opinions and thoughts on things. But at this point, not too much really gets me fired up. One thing that did get me a little bit fired up, but not in the good way, more of a negative sort of connotation, was Brad Ausmus coming out and announcing that Justin Verlander is going to be the starting pitcher for their opening day game on April 3rd at U.S. Cellular Field when they take on the White Sox. I get a little bit upset about this because Ausmus hasn't even seen anything from spring training, hasn't even seen anything from the pitchers and catchers reporting and kind of loosening up and stretching out. Now, what if something happens to Justin Verlander during spring training? Or what if, I don't know, Michael Fulmer's the second coming of Christ and he just blows you away? So you basically have now pigeonholed yourself and you want to give the nod on the tip of the cap to the veteran Justin Verlander. That's what we're doing at this point. It seems like with Justin Verlander, he has almost been babied and coddled his entire time with the Tigers. And it's because he is the guy who is the closest to a superstar pitcher that we have. Now, Michael Fulmer might come on and might sit there in shock and awe and amaze you, and maybe he sits there and takes that reign from Justin Verlander. But I feel like Justin Verlander has basically been given every benefit of the doubt. It seems like he is almost ushered in as this guy. He is the Detroit Tiger. He is the one. You know what I'm saying? And so whenever it's a special moment or it's something big, it's got to be Justin Verlander. So getting the ball to start the season and get everything underway, it's going to be Justin Verlander. And if you like it, good. If you don't like it, too bad. And I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Verlander is opening the season here in Detroit when opening day hits here. I wouldn't be surprised. They'd sit there and they'd pitch him on 4 days rest. Wouldn't blow my mind at all.
When you cut a guy a check every year and the total amount totals up to be $28 million, that's the respect. That's the hierarchy. And you could say, well, who's the better pitcher on the team? You could argue it'd be now Michael Fulmer, Justin Verlander, Jordan Zimmerman. It's among those three guys. But you give the nod to the guy.
But this is why Max Scherzer hated Justin Verlander. You do realize that, right?
I think it was dollars and cents.
No. There is a huge reason why Max Scherzer left, and it was because he hated Justin Verlander. Because Justin Verlander always got this, basically the red carpet rolled out for him, or I should say the blue and white carpet rolled out for him, so he could just sit there and just parade around.
But he didn't earn it. You don't think? With all the wins, the strikeouts, the persona, the guy that's been here now, the guy that was here as a rookie when they turned it around in 2006, I think he's earned it.
A lot of what he's done, yeah, but again, he's also the same pitcher who flames out or used to flame out towards the end of the season. And when you were counting on him for a big win, he would blow it and he'd crap the bed. You know, I mean, this is also the same guy, your veteran leader, who is sitting there and bedding reporters down in the locker room. You know, this is the same guy who is doing all of these things. You know, Justin Verlander, I think just gets the benefit of the doubt from the Tigers organization, and it drives me insane because he just gets all the accolades, and then he's never held accountable when he screws stuff up, and that pisses me off.
I disagree with you. I think he's held accountable. There's been a lot of people that have said that contract probably should be the first one that should be moved, that I think that Justin Verlander being on this team is a hindrance at this point in time. But to look at it, don't you think that Justin Verlander's 2016 kind of has given him a little bit more respect, a little bit more leeway this year, and saying that, hey, this is a guy that if he can continue to evolve and can be a guy that's not only just a strikeout pitcher, but a pitcher that can get consistent outs and give you solid innings, eat up a ton of innings for your squad, I think Justin Verlander's done enough. But yeah, it's one of those things where, is he worth $28 million this year? I sure hope so, but I saw an article in the Detroit News that said that the most important pitcher that needs to stay healthy is Jordan Zimmerman because of the start that he had last year. He had a season that was injury plagued. If he is able to stay healthy, I think then you can maybe have a situation where if Justin Verlander dips off a little bit, I think that Fulmer, Norris, and Boyd should be able to make up if Justin Verlander dips off. But I expect him to have a similar type season in the 15 to 18 win range. And for Justin Verlander, I hope one of the early goals that he has is to get out of the first inning. It seems like he struggles the first go-around with the lineup, and then he settles in. And sometimes that's just, a situation where that puts your team behind. But right now, going into the 2017 season, I have confidence that Justin Verlander is going to be a guy that you're going to count on to do some things.
Well, I absolutely. I mean, obviously, apparently, before pitchers and catchers even report, he's already your ace.
And towards the end of the year,
which, again, pisses me off because now he's the ace of the staff, and you have no idea what Fulmer's going to bring, no idea what Zimmerman's going to bring, no idea how Verlander's going to even report in shape or not.
Oh, he definitely is going to be in shape.
Don't worry, he'll be the ace.
He'll be the ace. He's getting paid like the ace, so they got to give him that respect. You can't. What are you going to do? You're going to name Michael Fulmer the starter?
No, but my whole thing is go out there and earn it. Because now what you've done is if Michael Fulmer shows up in the best shape of his life and Jordan Zimmerman comes back and he's healthier than he's been in a couple of years, and these guys are sitting there and they're pitching their pants off, you basically don't have a carrot to dangle in front of them because you've already given it to Verlander. Again, make the guys earn it. What has Verlander already earned this season? He's earned nothing, but he's already been given the A spot. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's what makes me mad. And that's the issue I have with this team. That's the issue I have with Ausmus doing what Ausmus does, like going around in the Winter Caravan. Don't worry, he's our ace. He's going to get all that. Why? Because he makes the biggest check? Is that why? Is that the logic here? It should be putting your team in the best spot. Look, if Justin Verlander throws like he's a 3-hole pitcher, he better not be in the 1 spot. He better be down in the starting rotation. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's my issue I have. Look, I totally agree with you. I think Jordan Zimmerman's health is imperative for this team because you're going to need Verlander to do what he did last year. You're going to need him to sit there and build off another healthy season and look like he's regained that form. You're also going to need Zimmerman to sit there and be healthy because he's got to help fill out that top one of those top 3 spots. And Michael Fulmer, you're going to need him to take a step forward, whether it be a small step or a large step forward. You're going to need him because you need 3 healthy pitchers at the top of this rotation. There's no way in hell you can sit there and you can put a guy like Sanchez or a guy like Pelfrey back into this starting rotation and expect this team to have some success. Daniel Norris will have to sit there and be solid. Especially he'll be that lefty that you've been yearning for if you're a Detroit Tigers fan. You've always wanted a lefty in your starting rotation, and you want somebody who can sit there and do really good things. Daniel Norris has to take that step and has to grab that horse by the reins and has to ride that out. On top of that, if you can get some production from a guy like a Matt Boyd, if he's going to be your 5th starter, that's great. You need those back 2 end guys to sit there and basically throw 500 ball for you. But you're going to need to lean heavily on those top 3 starters. So yeah, Zimmerman's health, imperative. Verlander coming back and pitching like he pitched most of last season, you're going to need it. And Michael Fulmer, you need him to take, whether it be a small step forward or whether it be a large step forward, you need him to move in the right direction. You can't have him take any steps back. This team does not have the ability to sit there and factor in any errors, especially with their starting pitching rotation right now. My whole point is go out there and earn it. And I've not seen Justin Verlander actually earn it per se in the last couple years. It just seems like he's handed it to him on a silver platter.
All right, so you look at what's been done in the offseason. Obviously, Al Avila probably didn't do what he probably wanted to do, but in essence, you bring back the same team. The players are pretty happy, and now you look at it and you go, okay, there's still 2 huge glaring weaknesses on this team.
Do you think Al Avila basically shot himself in the foot, maybe coming out and saying, hey, we're having a fire sale, we want to get rid of guys, make us an offer, and we'll talk about trading some guys? Because he really didn't move anybody but Cameron Maybin.
He didn't shoot himself in the foot. What this is really indicative of is a team that doesn't have enough talent that you could really trade for. And when you look at a trade from the other side and you go, we always as fans, and I've done it too, you always say, hey, let's go out there and let's trade Ian Kinsler for so-and-so. And then when you look at it on the other side, what are the Detroit Tigers asking for? And so when you say, hey, I want a starting player for Ian Kinsler, in terms of his contract and what's going on, many teams are just probably going to go, hey, I want to give you maybe a maybe type player, maybe a quality minor league player, but not a proven guy. And right now, I think everybody on the Detroit Tigers, outside of Miguel Cabrera, isn't going to bring you back a starting player. They're all going to bring you back a guy that's probably close to being in the majors, but not proven talent. Not with that contract. It's the contract.
Well, but Miguel Cabrera's contract's okay too.
if you're that close to getting to the World Series and you think Miguel Cabrera is that guy, you go out there and you pay him. That's not a big issue because, for a piece. But for a pitcher that comes out there once every 5 days and he's, at this point in time, not going to pitch every day, he pitches once every 5 days, and you assume naturally there's going to be some slide off. You can't justify paying that for 3 to 4 more years.
Top 10 pitching staffs in the MLB right now. Is Justin Verlander an ace on any of those squads, do you think?
A solid number 2 if he's not. I would put him on. I would say the Dodgers could need him. The Cubs would love to have him.
The issue right
the Boston Red Sox would love to have him. The big boy clubs can definitely have him.
It's the issue right there.
It's the money.
You said a solid number 2.
He's a solid number 2.
He's a solid number 2.
Yeah,
but he's the ace of your staff.
He's the ace of the staff.
But the guys that you're going to be competing against, trying to win a World Series against, he's a solid number 2 for those guys.
Pitching is a premium. They would take a solid number 2, but not at $28 million. He probably is more like a $18 to $21 million.
I just want
pitcher.
that. I just want that to sink in.
Yeah.
I want to sink in because that was the most honest. That was probably the most honest thing you've ever said to me.
Yeah,
he's a solid number 2.
Solid number 2 at this point in time.
That's going up against the top 10 pitching staffs in all of the Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
he's a solid number 2.
That's realistic. But the biggest thing that us fans are complaining about and what people are looking at is
he's your stud.
He's a stud.
He's your stud. He's not a stud. He's your stud.
Hey,
he's your guy who you're going to lean on, especially in crunch time, to help you win a World Series.
I'd still pay money to go see him when he pitches. Because at any time he could have 10 to 12 strikeouts and can do some things. He's still got the stuff. Can he do it night in, night out? That's going to be the thing that we're all going to look at. So I wouldn't jump off the Justin Verlander bandwagon just yet. You got to see what he does. And you don't think that his 2016 season was worthy enough of a Cy Young, mention? And things like that. He had a decent comeback season. You're not giving him credit.
Absolutely, I do. But my point, and more to the fact, is this goes back to him being given everything, to the way he is revered, in the way he is praised in this town, and the way he is looked upon. I just asked you, on the top 10 pitching staffs in all of Major League Baseball, where would he rank? Would he be an ace on those staffs? You said no. He would be a solid number 2, which means he's not good enough to sit there and be on those other 10 staffs.
Now, I would say it's not an indictment on Verlander, is that there's some really good pitchers out there. Clayton Kershaw. You have some top quality young arms out there that are going to go out there and do some things. Unfortunately, Justin Verlander's a little bit older, and he's been prone to some bad innings to start off games. And so, do I still think I want Justin Verlander as a solid number 2? Of course, anybody would take him. I just think that at this point in time, it's just that $28 million number that he earned is super tough to really add and justify because it's guaranteed. You have to take it on for the next 3 years, and you don't know what you're going to get. But if you're a team maybe like the Indians, you're a team like Boston, hey, don't discount the fact that maybe Justin Verlander won't be on this team to end the year. There's probably, I would give it 50% chance that he's not at the trade deadline if a team really is a little bit desperate and he goes out there. The biggest thing that he can do to help the team is actually go out there in 2017 and pitch pretty well and force a team maybe that's really close to maybe take a stance and throw some things at the Detroit Tigers. But to finally talk about this year's team, the 2 biggest things that really haven't upgraded are the manager and the bullpen. So I'll ask you, what is the biggest weakness on this team? Is it Brad Ausmus? Because we keep talking about it. Whenever we say those 2 words together, Brad Ausmus, most people kind of go, we're not really confident. We feel like that's the biggest hindrance. Many people feel like he's on the hot seat. Or is it the fact that you still have not really retooled that bullpen? You're trying to sign minor league guys in the hopes of maybe they're going to resurrect their career coming up and pitching in the Detroit Tigers bullpen. You're hoping that the guys that you have here, like a Rondon, like a Francisco Rodriguez, can kind of stabilize it with a rejuvenated Wilson and maybe a patchwork, efforts by Anibal Sanchez and Mike Pelfrey. It seems like it's all patchwork, but what do you think is the biggest weakness? Is it the manager or is it the bullpen?
I don't think Brad Ausmus is going to win you a game. I think he might lose you a couple games over the course of the season, but it's got to be that bullpen. You're expecting K-Rod to come in and have another good year, whereas it might just be serviceable. You're expecting Rondon to sit there and possibly take a step forward where he's been kind of up and down, and he's not really giving you anything that you can kind of grasp onto and be like, yeah, he's progressing in the right direction, because over the course of his Tigers career, he showed that he's very immature with a lot of the decisions he's making. The one guy that you can maybe lean on a little bit, Shane Green, that's a guy who I was kind of high on last year, but what are you going to get this year? What are you going to get this time around? Alex Wilson? That's what you got? I mean, it's just there's not a whole lot going on with that bullpen that really sits there and screams to me, hey, We can come in and we can shut the game down 7, 8, 9 if you really need us to. And that, again, on Al Avila for not going out and addressing this. I think he got maybe so wrapped up with trying to move contracts and move guys and talk about trades and fielding calls for guys and for moves that were never, ever going to happen, that maybe he lost sight of some of the real issues and glaring problems on this team, because we still don't know who's going to be playing center field on this team. And that's a huge question. Who's going to hold down center field for you? Is it going to be a guy like a Tyler Collins, a guy like a Jacoby Jones, or are you still going to go out and try to look for a free agent? What's going on in center field, And I was doing some looking at different stats and different things on fan graphs and just trying to figure a few things out and kind of what kind of players you've got that you might be able to plug into center field. And now, mind you, Jacoby Jones, that's a guy that they're really high on in the Tigers organization, but he's mostly played at Double-A. He didn't play a whole lot of games at Triple-A last year. He was brought up, and yeah, he fit in nicely, did quite well. But again, you now have a book out on this guy. So now are the pitching staffs able to pitch around him, do different things? And Tyler Collins was a guy who was up here. He had his infamous, I'm going to give everybody the bird and kind of make a mockery of things. But this is a guy who's kind of maybe more of a 4A player, not quite a major leaguer, but maybe a little bit better than a minor leaguer. So what are you going to do? And just kind of going off what Fangraphs kind of estimates here, Tyler Collins is basically a 240 batter, maybe give you 10 to 15 home runs, 50 RBIs. He's a below average fielder. On the flip side, Jacoby Jones is about a 250 batter, maybe 10 home runs, maybe 55 RBIs. He's a little bit slightly better at fielding than Collins is, but again, nothing great, no great shakes there. So what do? Do you go out and do you get a free agent? Going through and looking at the best available free agents that are still out there and somebody who might be able to fit in and play for you, because you had a guy in Cameron Maybin who's going to cost you about $9 million. And look, I don't care what you said. This team was much better when Cameron Maybin was in the lineup than when he wasn't. On top of it, he seemed to be a good locker room glue guy who kind of kept everybody together, kept the waves kind of calm, especially when things were kind of rough. The only other guy out there who right now can come in and maybe help facilitate some things would be a guy like a Brandon Moss. That's a 241 hitter. Averages about 25 home runs and 76 RBIs. The only good thing is he's a lefty bat that's okay in the field. But now he's going to need a contract. And you're going to have to pay him at least $8 million. Why wouldn't you have just kept Cameron Maybin in that moment in time? Cut your losses. Yeah, you get a lefty bat, but you don't necessarily upgrade so much in the field. It's about even there. This team has been constructed in a flawed way for so long.
And when you look at it, though, right now, the team is going towards a little bit more numbers-based. And when you look at it, over the course of 162 games, actually Tyler Collins' numbers project to be a little bit better offensively than Cameron Maybin. So you get him cheaper. You have an option there as a utility guy. So that's why they're trying their absolute best to say, okay, listen, we don't want to justify paying Cameron Maybin $9 million. I know he's a glue guy. When you look at it offensively with the numbers, Tyler Collins could be better for you over the course of a whole season if you put him there. But unfortunately, as fans, we just have to look at it and be resigned to the fact it's an open competition, and we got to see who's going to take the reins and start at center fielder. I do believe they have taken a step back by moving Cameron Maybin, but they're going with the open competition, and somebody has to step up and take it. When you objectively look at it, I think it's going to be Jacoby Jones. If he can be consistent offensively, I think Jacoby Jones will be the guy that plays the most games in 2017 at center field.
So again, rushing a guy up who might not be ready for that spotlight or for that moment in time.
Listen, if he's going to be out there, I do believe they will have spun it in a way that says that he earned it.
Oh yeah, of course they'll spin it that way. But what do your eyes tell you? Look, man, you got to be the beacon of truth here for the people. What do you see? What do you think? Do you think Jacoby Jones, at this ripe old young age that he's at, and a guy who basically played most of his baseball in Double-A, let's be honest, he's basically glossing over Triple-A. He made a quick little stop, said, hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, Mudhen's jersey doesn't fit so nice on me. I'm going to go wear the Old English D. I'll see you guys later. I mean, do you necessarily see that for this guy? Do you see him being able to project that way where he jumps from Double-A right into the majors?
Ideally, if things were ideal, then the Tigers would have Jacoby Jones get another year of seasoning at AAA. But unfortunately, this is the big boy league, so he's got to be out there, and he's going to be, you got to find out about him real quick. And maybe he, like I said, he started off his career with the Tigers with some bang and some RBIs and things like that. So why not give him a chance and see what he does? But do I say that at this point in time that you're super confident that, hey, you've upgraded? Not at this point in time, but hey, give a guy a chance and look at, what everybody said about Nick Castellanos. Everybody said, hey, give up on him. All of a sudden, with a couple years, he's gotten back, and offensively, he's a guy that you consider to be a threat. So if you're in a situation where you're forced to kind of learn at the major league level, let him do it.
Let me run down what the outfield's going to look like to you, okay?
It's not going to look good, of course.
And I want you to be so panic-stricken that you're basically frozen where you're at. All right, in left field, you've got good old what's-his-nuts.
Justin Upton.
Yes.
Hey, he had a resurgence in 2016
at the end of the year. And think about how good he is in the outfield.
Yeah, he's not that good.
Exactly. Giant question mark there.
Defensively.
In right field, you got good old JD Martinez, right? Strong bat, very average at fielding. He's got an okay arm. And then coin flip, Tyler Collins, Jacoby Jones. You want to go with Jacoby Jones. So now you've got essentially a rookie playing center field for you who's got moderate range, not great. So now you're going to sit there and you're going to basically saddlebag him with two guys who are average to below average fielders on both of his sides, and he's got to control that gigantic center field. All right, good luck.
Yeah, we should be panicked going into this.
It's going to be brutal. This team is constructed like absolute garbage again. And this is just me talking out loud, kind of working through it with you. It's going to be brutal, dude. It's going to be bad. And we haven't even sat there and got into spring training yet. I mean, yeah, hey, Al Avila might make a move or two, might be able to pull, I don't know, some kind of magical star out of the sky and bring him down and set him out there in Comerica Park, and it's going to be great. But I'm nervous already. Pitchers and catchers haven't even reported yet, and I'm already upset. My stomach's already turning.
All right, let's take a quick time out. I know, it's definitely one of those things where, the Tigers are unfortunately the team that many people will feel like, hey, is the team that you can kind of gravitate towards, that has the biggest hope and the biggest chance of making the postseason. But when you really look at it objectively, it's going to be a long ride, and we'll see what happens. All right, stay with us. Doc and Jock, episode 181, rolls along on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to TopCatTeamSales.com. That's TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat. You as excited as me, Royal Rumble, Sunday?
Scathing promos were cut on SmackDown on Tuesday. John Cena, dude, that guy. Say what you want about the man, all right? You can think he's kind of a DB. You can think he sits there and buries other guys. You can think that he does whatever it is. But that guy cuts some pretty wicked promos. And when he wants to cut you, he will cut you live and in the ring. Honestly, AJ Styles needed like gauze and 92 Band-Aids. That's how cut up he got by Cena on Tuesday night SmackDown.
For those that didn't hear it, what was the highlight of his promo?
Again, he went back to the tried and true, I'm built for WWE. You think that everything was just handed to me because I didn't sit there and work in the indies like the rest of you guys. Some stuff along the lines of, what was the good? He had like 3 really good lines I'm trying to remember right now.
Basically, trying to delegitimize AJ Styles because of the fact that he's been popular right now.
Well, he basically just kind of put him in his place. Like, dude, he's like, one of the best things he said was, you think that you're basically like you're hot shit because you've been holding that belt and holding this company down for 6 months. I've been holding it down for 16 years. Just things like that, man. The way he spins it. There's so many good punchlines that he just works in. I'll find it and I'll put it up there on Twitter. I'll find it on YouTube and I'll put it up there on Twitter for you. But dude, it was it was just them going back and forth for like 5 minutes, and it was probably the best part of SmackDown.
All right, this is the segment of the show where the doc gets to ask the jock questions and what we call Jock Jams. All right, cuz last week was Rumor Central. I got a little bit excited when the Pistons kind of, ESPN came out and said that, hey, Reggie Jackson potentially could be moved to Minnesota, but what we were getting back wasn't too exciting. The Red Wings obviously are looking at potentially trading Thomas Vanek or other pieces, maybe a Coro or one of the goalies if it becomes a logjam. So last week, rumors came out that both the Pistons and Wings were contacted about possible trades. If one team were to send somebody packing, which team do you believe needs to make the move more importantly and more quickly?
Well, if I'm looking at this, I guess the way we probably should be looking at it, which move would help which team make the playoffs and be more impactful in the playoffs? That being said, if you're in the NBA, I firmly believe you got to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in your conference to sit there and have a legit shot at winning an NBA championship. In the NHL, you basically just got to get in. If you got a hot goalie or you get a little bit hot, you can sit there and ride that warm streak all the way through to the Stanley Cup Finals and win in the finals. So that being said, I'm probably going to go with the Wings. Need to make a move more than the Pistons do, just because I think the Pistons are so far behind the 8 ball with the way this team is constructed and the way the NBA is. Look, I don't think you're beating Cleveland. I don't think you're going to beat Golden State. I don't think you're going to beat San Antonio. And as we kind of work our way through different teams, I don't think you're going to beat a Houston. I don't think you've got the guts to go up against in OKC. And these are just a few teams off the top of my head that you've got to work your way past if you're looking to win an NBA championship. And I just don't see the Pistons being able to match up with any of those teams if they were either getting to the finals or if they were on their way to get to the finals. I just don't see it happening. Now with the Red Wings, really and truly the big issue and what they're kind of missing is they're missing some help on the defensive side. Look, yeah, they can't score and everybody knows that. But if you watch that game against Boston the other night, most of Boston's goals were scored right out in front of the net. Just there. Guys just there. I mean, Cronwell looks like a human pylon. I don't necessarily know why he's still playing. Dan DeKeyser has regressed and taken an awful step backwards. I like what some of the young kids give you, but you need somebody who can maybe step in and help out right now if you're looking to make the playoffs. So I think if you can go get maybe a big offensive forward or offensive defenseman, I think that would help the Wings out a little bit more than, say, a point guard for the Pistons at this point, because I just don't think the Pistons have a realistic shot at making a long run in the playoffs.
Now, many people are looking at both the situations of the Pistons and the Red Wings, and many people are starting to get grumpy, a little bit down on the management. Jeff Blashill, what's he doing with his lines? How is he appropriating the ice time and things like that? Is he getting the most out of his players? SVG, many people are thinking that, they're getting flashbacks of when, Richard Hamilton led the revolt against Custer. People are saying to themselves, is Stan Van Gundy getting the most out of these guys? Andre Drummond's not playing defense. You gave him a big amount of money. You gave him the max deal, and he looks like he's kind of just, halfway going through the motions. You got Reggie Jackson. You gave him a ton of money, and his name was the name that was kind of being bantied about for a trade. So who do you think will last longer in their stint coaching a Detroit team? The Detroit Pistons coach, Stan Van Gundy, or Red Wings head coach, Jeff Blashill?
It's got to be Stan Van, right? I mean, he is basically the head of the organization. I know that technically his title is not GM, but he is essentially the general manager. He's also the president, and he's also the head coach. So are you going to fire yourself? I don't see that happening. Blashill's a guy who I could see possibly going. I think Ken Holland is really tied to him, so if Blashill goes, Ken Holland's probably gone too, or flip that any way you want. If one goes, I think the other one goes as well. So that being said, I don't think either one's going at this point this year. Maybe next year, Blashill and Kenny leave or get fired because Mike Ilitch or Chris Ilitch get sick of everything that's kind of going on, because I don't know if there's any help coming down the pipeline at this point. I mean, again, this is an organization with the Red Wings that loves and caters the veterans, and they always push the veteran piece over the youth, and they like to leave you down in Grand Rapids until, if you are a banana, you're coming out brown. They don't want you to sit there and, be nice and firm and yellow and taste delicious. They want you to be mushy and brown and whatever else. You know what I'm saying? So it's a program that values over-ripened fruit as opposed to what's going to be able to help you right now and maybe put some points on the board and get some experience in the big leagues. So I think Stan Van's got more longevity, and that's just because he kind of helps run the organization. He is the head of the snake, so I don't think you're going to cut off the head of the snake.
of the two organizations right now, based upon what you're watching and what you're seeing in terms of how they're playing, what their potential is for success this year, whose stock would you buy at this point in time?
I'd like to sell on both of them. It's all pretty bad. With the Pistons, it seems like there's a lot of infighting going on. Whether it be with Reggie Jackson, I mean, you go back to when he was first coming back from his injury, things didn't really mesh right away and didn't really go well, and there was some issues with some of the players, talking about how Reggie's doing this, Reggie's doing that, and that kind of rubbed some guys the wrong way. Stan Van then jumped in, and there was some conflict between Reggie and Stan, and now KCP's trying to work his way back in, and just, Stan Van does have this knack of alienating players. So it just seems like there's sometimes a little bit more infighting going on with the Pistons than with the Red Wings. Red Wings, it seems like they don't have the talent, and they know they don't have the talent. So it's just digging deep and trying to bring that effort every single night. And if they bring the effort, they're usually in games long enough to sit there and blow them in overtime, or maybe get to a shootout and somehow get a win in overtime. So if I had to buy, I'd probably buy the Wings. And again, more nature of the beast. If you get hot in hockey, you can sit there and go a little bit longer than you can in basketball. And that's just because in basketball, most of the power players sit up at the top, and good luck making your way through those guys.
Some news made in the world of college basketball. I'm interested to get your take on this. The NCAA Selection Committee will release the top 4 seeds in each region to create buzz for the basketball tournament a month early. Is it great to kind of have a committee type thing where you kind of know already where you might slot if you're in the top 4? Or do you think it's just another thing made for TV to just generate clicks and more made for TV nonsense?
That's what it is. It's more stuff to create buzz. It's a way to sell advertisement for the NCAA and the selection committee and everything that kind of gets rolled around with March Madness. They're basically releasing the top 16 teams, 4 teams in each region. So if you're a bottom team, you have no idea if you're in or out and what you got to do to get back into it. So, I mean, if they really wanted to do a solid job, they would sit there and release all the teams, and you could sit there and kind of break them down, take a half hour to an hour, release all the teams, and just kind of highlight, why this team is first, why this team's playing in a play-in game, and just kind of work your way through each region. But again, this is here. We're going to say, hey, you know what? You're a top 16 team, and this is where you rank right now. So good job with that. Keep doing what you're doing. And you know what? Hey, somebody buy Mr. Clean scrubbing bubbles and spray because, we need to sell stuff with revenue because, hey, it's the March Madness month early pre-selection committee show. It's just TV rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? It's CBS trying to sell some stuff on CBS. That's all it is.
I think any opportunity you can to continue the buzz, then I think it's a good idea as well. Because look what they did for college football when they started, going to the committee. You had a situation where the most genius move they made was when they had Michigan like number 5, and they had all the speculation in town. You basically tripled the ratings in Michigan for the game. You had a situation where many people watched Washington's game where they would never have a rooting interest because they knew had Washington lost, Michigan could have slotted in there because there was discussion, hey, they put Michigan number 5. Imagine now you have a situation where they release it and you got a team like Michigan State and they want to know, hey, are we number 1 or are they number 2? And the week before, it ups the ante in the games that are going to be played. So yeah, it definitely reeks of, greed and trying to get clicks and trying to get more product out there and another show where people can go out there and debate it. But I do believe there are some advantages too. So look at that too. Don't be such a hater, man. Do we got a hater up in here? A hater?
I hate on everything. You know how I do. My glass is always half empty. And since my glass is half empty, I'm about to ready to knock yours over and break it.
Let's take our final timeout, regroup, come back, and definitely talk about the Detroit Lions and the big game ahead in the next 10 days. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting
rolling along here on this fine podcast, episode 181, 181 straight Thursdays. You've heard a podcast here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, going strong since September of 2013. Thanks only to those that support us, those that download across the various platforms, and we greatly appreciate it. The best and easiest way to support us, check out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. All right, sir. So give you guys a little bit of an insight regarding the behind-the-scenes stuff that we do here. I was trying to not talk about the Detroit Lions anymore. I wanted Adam to just kind of do his thing in Jock Jams and just bloviate about the Detroit Lions so I could do other things as well while he was talking, because it's one of those things where you watch football, you watch the Detroit Lions, you watch good quality football, you realize the Lions aren't anywhere close, but it's one of those situations where I felt like I needed a week. But Adam, no, he's like, no, we got to make this a segment. I got a lot of things more I want to talk about. I just wanted to ask you first, don't you ever get sick of the Lions at least 1 week, knowing that, hey, they just came off of a kind of a disappointing end to the season? There's two great football teams with great quarterbacks playing. There's two great organizations playing. And, you know, there's one that's just the elite, the best of the best. And we're sitting here still trying to talk about, hey, can we surround Matthew Stafford with some more pieces? And we're talking about literally the same things about the guy that's running, that the guy that's about to get paid here in Detroit. Don't you get sick of that shit?
Yeah, I do. But again, the Super Bowl is building, and this is what we do. I mean, shoot, next week will be all basically Super Bowl talk. So, yeah, I mean, look, this is just kind of the sports cycle. This is what happens. You know, these are the two teams that were lucky enough to make it to the Super Bowl.
No, not lucky enough.
Now
they were the best teams in the league.
Now you got to spin it to our Lions, and
they're not the best team in the league.
How far away are the Lions to these two teams? And that's what you kind of got to look at. You got to start to decipher. And the one thing that no matter how much you talk Lions, it always comes back to this one guy, and that's Matt Stafford. No matter what you talk about, you can talk about the defense for an hour. In the end, you're going to probably start and come back to Matt Stafford. It's just the way it works. And now headed into the Super Bowl, there's, I think, there's a great correlation here, because Matt Ryan is now in his 9th season. This has probably been his very best season. And the real question is, should we now expect something like this from Matt Stafford, who next year will be headed into his 9th season? And there's a lot of comparisons between the two. Matt Ryan, going into the year, was in the top 15 quarterbacks, just like Matt Stafford. I think Matt Stafford was ranked 11, and I think Ryan was ranked like 14th. So two guys who were very closely associated with each other. Matt Ryan has a few more weapons around him, but Matt Stafford at one point had one of the best wide receivers in the game, just like Matt Ryan now has Julio Jones. Matt Stafford's never actually had a running game, where Matt Ryan has a two-headed monster in Atlanta. So I think that you can sit there and really look at what Matt Ryan is doing and sit there and be hopeful as a Lions fan, and maybe even yearn a little bit for Matt Stafford to take that next step and jump leaps and bounds. So headed into next season, his 9th year, what are some realistic expectations for Matt Stafford? And I think there's a lot there. I think you're looking at the 3rd year and the second offseason under Jim Bob Cooter, which is a total bonus for Matt Stafford. So now you've got some consistency in the offensive game. You basically know the playbook inside and out. Most of the offensive line you're expecting to take a step forward, because they'll be in their 2nd year together. Right tackle's a little bit of a question mark, because you're not sure how they're going to address that, whether or not they're going to let Riley Reif go. Maybe they draft somebody, maybe they go out and they bring a free agent in to kind of lock down that spot. But for the most part, the offensive line is young and will stay intact, and that's a great thing. The real issue is what's going on with the run game. Matt Stafford has never, ever had a run game here in Detroit. And is Amir Abdullah going to take that next step forward, finally be able and be healthy to play an entire season? And can you pair him with a guy like Theo Riddick and be able to get some good production? Is Zach Zenner going to be one of the pieces moving forward long-term with this team, as he seems to be one of the only guys who can run between the tackles? Does Dwayne Washington sit there and maybe take that 3rd spot, and maybe he's your between-the-tackle runner? What's going to happen with this run game? And I think that's where a lot of things kind of have to come into play. You've got an offensive line that looks to be taking steps forward and should and is expected to take steps forward, but you need to address that running game, whether it's drafting a running back or whether it's going out signing somebody from free agency, or you have the pieces already inside the organization. You just need them to either A, stay healthy, or B, take advantage of their potential. And I think Matt Stafford going into year 9 can have a season that was very similar to what Matt Ryan did. Now, Matt Ryan, that being said, Matt Ryan and Tom Brady both, you're going by what ESPN did with their QBR. And it's basically ESPN's made up statistic that kind of does a little bit away with the whole passer rating. It just kind of factors it in. It also adds and subtracts some other things. But at the end of the season, Matt Ryan was the number 1 QBR with a total QBR of 83.3, while Tom Brady was an 83 even. Matt Stafford was in the top 8. Matt Stafford's QBR was 70.5. So, I mean, it's pretty solid. He's close. I think going into next season, you can expect, or you should expect, Matt Stafford's QBR to be somewhere in that top 4. And just to give you some perspective, Aaron Rodgers was 4th at 76.9. So you don't need to jump that much. I think you can expect that, though.
No.
You should.
I don't expect that at all. Here's what I expect. All right, at this point in time, you know what Matthew Stafford is. I don't think you're going to keep seeing leaps and bounds of improvements here with a quarterback that now in his 8th year, going into his 9th, is going to be expected to take this team to the Super Bowl. Matt Ryan was a solid top draft pick, and he's evolved and he's done some things, and they surrounded him with talent. Yeah, Julio Jones, great player, a guy that's really a guy that you can count on. They've given him a running game and a solid defense. Yeah, you can build that all for Matthew Stafford, and I think you can expect him to kind of be a guy. Under this offense, you know what you're going to see. You're going to see an offense that's going to be trying to control the game. You're not going to see blowouts. And I think the number one thing we should all be looking at is philosophically, Jim Caldwell and the offense, and philosophically, Terrell Lawson's defense could do a little bit more. You saw what the game plans were in the last 5 weeks. They were very conservative. They didn't throw the ball deep too many times. You need a little bit more, I would say, creativity in the offense. You need to be able to showcase Matthew Stafford a little bit more. So I would say that's probably a little bit more important than even the talent on the team, is to say, hey, you had guys, you had Marvin Jones, you had Golden Tate, and what you did was you didn't come up with a creative enough offense to get you where you needed to go. Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, they were able to throw the ball over the place. Both of them had over 300 yards passing, 2 and 3 and 4 touchdowns each. So they were able to do some things. And what I'm going to be looking for next year is, will Jim Bob Cooter unleash Matthew Stafford and let him throw the ball a little bit more? Yes, we're going to need improvements in a lot of areas. They're probably going to be, and we're going to talk about Bob Quinn in just a few seconds here, they're probably going to be a team that's going to improve. They're going to be a team that's going to be looking to upgrade at many different positions on the offense and the defensive side of the ball. When I look at how does Matthew Stafford compare to Matt Ryan, there's no comparison. Matt Ryan's a little bit more seasoned. I think he's a more prototypical passer.
Seasoned by a year.
Hey, in football circles, that's a long time. Matthew Stafford's a guy that you can win with. They're going to invest in Matthew Stafford. Do I believe he's going to, in 1 year move up the ranks and be in that top 4? No. But I do believe you can win with Matthew Stafford. But, I mean, we are just trying to jump, I think, ahead a little bit to what we're seeing here with Matt Ryan and Tom Brady. What we need first is get to the postseason. Play well in the postseason. Get that win. Okay, Matt Ryan had playoff wins before. Okay, and so we're still talking about Matthew Stafford trying to earn one single playoff victory. That's all I'm looking for, is just play well against the good teams. This is going to be a great season to see, and I really do believe, and I hope they're not seriously negotiating right now, because, hey, Bob Quinn has to see what Matthew Stafford is going to do this year against elite competition, because the schedule looks to be a little bit tougher. My realistic expectations for Matthew Stafford is have a similar season like you did in 2016, maybe improve a little bit in some certain areas, stay healthy throughout the whole year, lead this team into the postseason, and just play well. That's it. Do I think they're going to do it? Not really.
Let me ask you this. Kirk Cousins, all right? You can sit there and you can kind of separate yourself and you can look at Washington constructively. So if you're Washington, do you go out and do you pay Kirk Cousins basically $20 million?
No.
Why?
Because he's a guy.
He's been your best quarterback that you've had as a franchise for years. Mm-hmm. On top of it, he has taken you to a playoff game. Mm-hmm. On top of it, he seems to understand that offense and he is a leader on that team. But you still wouldn't pay him.
No, I wouldn't pay him that much money. Here's what you look at with Kirk Cousins, okay? Everybody looks at, the number one question is, okay, is he the next Tom Brady? Is he the guy? Is he similar to Aaron Rodgers? Can he take over a game? And now the situation is this.
I think that's flawed. I think you should look at it as, can this guy...
You can't pay a game manager $20 million.
With our system, can this guy win us a game? Can this guy win us a playoff game? Can this guy get us there? I think that's how you have to look at it. So if you look at it and you're trying to compare him to Tom Brady, good luck. Good luck trying to find the next Tom Brady.
What I'm saying is
it's not like they fall off trees.
You can't pay game managers that much money.
So Kirk Cousins is a game manager.
He's a game manager.
All right, because I see a lot of similar parallels between what's going on in Washington with Kirk Cousins and what goes on here in Detroit with Matt Stafford.
I still take Stafford over
I would
Kirk
too.
Cousins.
I think Matt Stafford has a much better skill set than Kirk Cousins does. I think Matt Stafford is not a game manager. I think he's a guy who can go out there and win you a game. I think that he is a guy who can win you a playoff game given the right circumstances.
All we can do is look at Kirk Cousins' last performance. You had the ball in your
Kirk
hands.
Cousins is going to get paid, by the way.
He probably is, but you look at his last performance versus the Giants, a must-win situation, win and you're in. What did he do? He had the ball late. He played a very solid game, but in crunch time, in money time, in $20 million a year time, threw a couple of interceptions that were probably passes he'd like to have back.
By the way, Kirk Cousins on ESPN's total QBR ranks 6th at 71.7. So there's that as well.
Okay. So to recap, my realistic expectation is that Matthew Stafford is going to at least perform at the level he did in 2016, and then he's going to have to probably, have a little bit more of a supporting cast around him, and they're going to have to unleash him because that offense is too conservative. Because look at both games in the AFC and NFC title games, blowouts. Jason and I said it. Everybody said it. I know you probably said it to your boys too. The Lions wouldn't have played like that.
No.
They would have played a 33-31 game, and it would have been down to the wire. You're allowed, and we've said it time and time again, you're allowed to blow out a team. You're allowed to go out there and kick some team's ass.
I just don't think their personnel that they have right now allows
I think they could have.
for that.
Another coach would have gotten that out of those three guys. Marvin Jones.
So then again,
isn't Marvin Jones better than Chris Hogan?
Does this go back to coaching then?
Of course.
I can't stand Jim Caldwell, neither can you.
Of course.
So go out there and get a coach who will do that.
Exactly. Realistically, Marvin Jones and Golden Tate are better than Chris Hogan.
I agree.
And so I would say that the reason why everybody's down on the Red Wings and Pistons and Lions is that you do believe that with a different coach, somebody else would have got a little bit more out of that team. I really think another coach probably would have got a playoff win out of this 2016 team. And you got the same coach coming in next year, and you're going to have if you have an improved running back, what are you going to do then? Are you going to exclusively feature a running back and not let Stafford get his touches? Because then when you call upon him, he won't be in rhythm. So it's just one of those things that's going to be too complicated.
I think if you can sit there and solidify your running back or your running back core, whatever it is, however you're going to sit there and address it, because going into the season, we thought we had a strong running back core. We thought we had 4 running backs who could actually go out there and do some things. All right, at times only 2 were played, at other times 3 were played, and at no time were all 4 ever healthy enough to play a game. So I think you solidify your running back core, and then you go into the season knowing what you have there. At this point, I have no idea what they even have because I've got no clue what Abdullah's going to be. I've got no idea how they're going to want to use Theo Riddick, if his role is going to stay the same or if it's going to change. Is Dwayne Washington a guy that you can give more carries to his second season around? Because, again, same thing with Zach Zenner. They limited him. They almost hamstrung him. Here, we're going to sit there. We're going to run you 15 times in the first half, and then you know what? You get 2 touches. Only 2 touches the second half. So you're telling me that these guys can only run the ball 17 times in a game? Because if that's the case, we've got to have some conversations here, Jim Bob Cooter, and we've got to have some conversations, Jim Caldwell, because this just doesn't jive. I mean, there are running backs out there who get the ball 40-some times in games. I mean, they don't last very long, but they get the ball 40. They touch the ball 40-some times. That's 3 times more than your guys are getting. So come on, there's got to be something else there. So I think you need to solidify the running game and address the right tackle, whether you're going to bring Riley Reif back or not. Figure out what you want to do there. Go into the next season knowing what you have for a offensive line and know what you have with your running back stable and go ahead and attack it. And I think you can give the ball to your running back 20 times, 22 times a game. I don't think that's going to hurt your team. If anything, you keep the ball, you possess the ball, and possessing the ball is one of those stats that usually results in wins. So the more you possess the ball, the less the other team's offense is on the field, the more their defense is on the field, and you sit there and you take advantage of their tighter defense and you score points. What's hurt the team this entire season was scoring points. They couldn't get in the red zone, and when they did, they usually settled for field goals. So that was an issue. So being able to run the ball, I think, helps contribute to this team being more successful on down the road.
All right, so now we get a chance to look at the 2 organizations that are in the Super Bowl. They're going to be playing next Sunday, Super Bowl 51, and one team that I do believe probably is the easier route for the Detroit Lions to kind of build like is the Atlanta Falcons. You have a solid quarterback, one number one wide receiver, solid running game, and above average defense. And that group, the Atlanta Falcons, put together by general manager Thomas Dimitroff. When you look at Dimitroff's history in the NFL, came up as a scout, has worked his way throughout different organizations, but the one stop that I think helped him out greatly was he was touched by the New England Patriots. And then you go, well, have the coaches really been successful that have left New England? And you look at you look at many of the leaders. You look at Scott Pioli. He was probably the number one name that you remember from the organizational structure of the New England Patriots. Went out there to Kansas City and kind of fell flat. Hasn't done a great job. Thomas Dimitroff, a little bit better right now, building up the Atlanta Falcons. But the Detroit Lions, they went out when they decided to blow out their front office. They went and got Bob Quinn. And by all accounts, he did a really decent job. Made some rookie mistakes as a general manager. He's admitted it. But I do believe he is looking to improve all aspects of the organization. So at this point in time, I still have faith in Bob Quinn. The one huge demerit that I have is that in 2 years, I don't think it takes you, 700 days to decide that Jim Caldwell is not a Super Bowl caliber coach. But for me, at this point in time, I do believe that year 2 of drafting and improving the club in free agency, I do believe he has done enough to kind of keep hope for many people that this is the guy that could take you to the promised land.
I just want to say that I love Thomas Dimitroff. I love his hair. I love his style. I love his shoes.
His swagger.
Dude, Thomas Dimitroff, I remember when he first got the job with the Falcons, I was like, who is this guy? And why does he dress so brash? And how does he have his hair? I love Thomas Dimitroff. He's off the chain. And do you realize 2 years ago, this guy was inches away from being fired?
Yeah.
He was that close. They sat there and they flipped the script, and I think he just recently signed a 3-year extension with Atlanta, and he's done a lot of good things there. And I think you're right. You can build this team in the model that the Atlanta Falcons are built like. And that being said, you've got a quarterback who is more than a game manager. He's a top 10 QB out there. You've got wide receivers who can get downfield. You've got the thing is that the Lions don't have is they don't have a running game. I think the Lions have an okay offensive line that I expect to get better next season. You just have to address the running game. That being said, Bob Quinn, I think, will do that. And if we just kind of look at what he's done over his first year as general manager, I think we both agree we really liked his draft. I mean, he's got contributions from guys like Taylor Decker, Graham Glasgow, A'Shawn Robinson, Miles Killebrew, ended up sitting there contributing. Dwayne Washington, a guy we just talked about. Anthony Zettel played well. Joel Dahl, that might be a guy who you can sit there and might take over that right guard position, maybe that left guard position, and help solidify that. So, I mean, the big issue that I think we both had with his draft was taking Jimmy Landis. You take a long snapper. For what reason? Not really sure. Unless he's on this team next season because he was IR'd, that was a wasted pick then. And if you look at what he did with free agency, he sat there, brought in Raphael Bush and Tavon Wilson, and both those guys helped solidify some of that safety rotation that they had where they would work a guy in, work a guy out. On top of that, he brought in Marvin Jones, Andre Roberts, Anquan Bolden. These are 3 guys who sat there and were massive contributions throughout the season, helping win games this year. And he wasn't one of those guys who was too stubborn to sit there and keep a guy if he didn't work. Stephen Ridley he brought in. That was a former Patriots guy. Brought him in. Didn't work. Let him go. Jeremy Curley. Let him go. Sat there and traded him during the in preseason. So there are things that he's done, and he's done well, and I expect him to build upon that. I expect his next draft to sit there and be better than this last year's draft was. I expect him to go out and address guys in free agency because they'll have a little bit more money. You can go out there and you can get some other guys. A guy who I'm huge on, that I'm high on, would be a guy who's playing in the Super Bowl, and that's Dante Hightower. All right, he's a linebacker. You can go out there, you can grab him, and I guess he was stating that he essentially wants his contracts to start somewhere near 4 years. I believe it was $50 million, so about 12 and a half a season. I'd go out there and give that guy 13, 14 million a year, and I'd give him 5 years because I think he's going to be that impactful. I think he's that good of a player. You can sit there and you can plug him in, and he will help your team win. And now you've just helped upgrade your linebacking core on this team. So I expect Bob Quinn to sit there and make more good moves and more educated moves like that, and I expect this team to get better. The one thing that this team didn't have going into this season was depth, and Bob Quinn went out there and addressed that by bringing in guys who we both of us were sitting across from each other just scratching our head like, who? Why is he bringing this guy in? And in the end, it all kind of paid off. There were moves that were made to help not just strengthen the starters out there and the guys that everybody knows, but sit there and strengthen this team to a point to where when one guy goes down, it's next man up, and there's not that huge drop-off. So I'm very impressed with what Bob Quinn has done, and I expect him to keep doing more of the same in year 2.
All right. And so finally, to end this podcast, I know you're excited.
Super excited.
You saw the 2 words that get you excited. So to end this podcast quickly, within 5 minutes, I hope.
Oh, man. I don't know if I can do it.
Okay, because we're near 90 minutes, damn it.
I've got a 3-round mock draft, baby.
Chad Reuters, NFL.com. Hit me up with what this dude's thinking about in the first 3 rounds.
Okay, so for the 21st pick, the Lions will take Florida State cornerback Quincy Wilson. 53rd pick, they take DN from Kansas State, Jordan Willis. 85th pick, they take defensive tackle from LSU, Davon Gachu. Now, I probably messed up that last name. So as you can see, there are definite needs on defense. That being said, I'm not a huge fan of what he has going on with his 21st pick, especially when a defensive end like Taco Charlton's out there who goes at 28, or outside linebacker TJ Watts, that's the younger brother to JJ Watt, goes at 29. So not a huge fan of those two, not a huge fan of that first round pick, but you kind of get the implication of where this draft will be going with Bob Quinn. And it looks like it will be focusing heavily on defense. Do you want some notable picks?
For sure.
Okay, so first overall pick, quarterback Deshaun Watson goes to Cleveland. 7th pick, safety Malik Hooker, he's gone. 8th pick, running back Leonard Fournette, he gone. 9th pick, DN Solomon Thomas, he's gone. Now that's a guy who basically looked unstoppable in the bowl game, and he could probably come in and play for the Lions and would really help contribute. Local product, I've mixed some local products in here. 13th pick, wide receiver Corey Davis from Western Michigan. At the 12th pick, this is a guy that me and you were both really high on. Linebacker from Alabama, Reuben Foster, he's gone. 14th pick, running back Delvin Cook. The reason why I bring this up, because running back's a little bit of a need. We just kind of touched on it a little bit. So Fournette's gone at 8. Delvin Cook, who just looked like an absolute monster running all over Michigan during their bowl game, he's gone at 14. Out of Ohio State, cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, he's gone with the 15th pick. Staying close to home, number 17, with the 17th pick, Jabril Peppers. They have him in here as a safety. He's gone. And from Michigan State, defensive tackle Malik McDowell gets drafted 24th. So just some interesting names to kind of see where Chad Reuters got guys going. It was an interesting 3-round mock draft. Again, not a huge fan of what he does with that 21st pick, not when there's a guy like a Taco Charlton or a TJ Watt out there. And those are 2 guys who I would expect that you could sit there, grab them, plug them in, and they would make an immediate impact. And the thing is, when you add a guy to your front 7, that makes your back 4 that much better. So it's almost like a 2-for-1 combo meal. If you add a DN, it's going to add pressure to the quarterback. You add an outside linebacker, that's a guy who might be able to get to the quarterback, if anything, cover a tight end. We did have an issue with that, didn't we, this year? That got gobbled up by tight ends all year long. So that right there helps make your secondary look that much better when you've got 2 guys that you could possibly plug into the front 7. That's why I would stay away from a cornerback with the first pick.
Okay, quick hitter. Does Bob Quinn get a demerit for Kyle Van Noy?
I was going to bring that up, but I wanted to maybe stay away from that. No, I don't think so, because Kyle Van Noy was here for what? 2.5 seasons? And at no point
He didn't fit.
He didn't show anything.
But he fits in New England, 3-4.
But this is the thing, all right? This is what New England does. New England sits there and goes out and grabs guys off the bushel bin and addresses what they do well. And they don't put them in spots where they're like, hey, look, you do a really good job of rushing the passer, but we're going to need you to drop back in coverage. They don't do that. Look, you do a good job rushing the passer? Go ahead. That's all you got to do. You have one job to do. Like, you could be a total idiot, but you're really good at the one thing you do well. That's all they make you do. And that's basically what they've done with Kyle Van Noy.
Okay, for you, if you want to read one article today, ESPN PR is taking the gloves off. They've been listening to Fox Sports 1 chirp and all of the Fox Sports entities. They listen to them chirp about, their ratings and their numbers. So they put out, and I just tweeted out at Detroit Podcast, Fox versus ESPN, Anatomy of a Moving Target from ESPN PR. They've taken the gloves off and they've said, okay, we've heard you chirp now for week after week after week, month after month.
They're going after each other?
Here we go. ESPN PR has put out an article and said, here, Fox versus ESPN. Here it is. And they said, you think you're going to do anything? And they've laid it out there. So it's an interesting article because because Fox has just kind of, tried to, step it up a little bit. And ESPN said, sure, you want to play in the big boy pool? Here's our article trouncing you. So check it out. Interesting article.
I'm going to have to check that out for sure. That'll be interesting.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Thank you for listening to us. We greatly appreciate it. You can always find us, Doc and Jock, every single Thursday on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Go Wings. Go Pistons.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me. They tell me things that I will do. They show me things I'll do.